I was there when it happened. Oh my god. I don't know. When it didn't happen at 8:30, I was starting to wonder, like, am I gonna have to stay up till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning? Like, when is this gonna happen? And at 9:38 PM Central Standard Time on Saturday, January 18th, 2025, that's the night the lights went out on TikTok. They actually did it, right? They actually did it. So, very interesting. I think there are some things to learn from all of this. Like I saw a lot of people talking about, saving all of their content like today and yesterday, and people were running out of time. And I'm wondering, like, why are you just now saving your content? Like, so y'all really rest all your content on a platform? You clearly have never been deplatformed before, because if you have, you would never do that again, right? I'm not saying I saved every last piece of my content, but pretty close to it. There's some content I was just like, I don't care. This has no bearing on the future, on business. It's just not that importante. So I didn't care as much about it. But one of the things I teach in Pin Profits Mastery is to own your masters. Okay. To own your masters, right? And so that means for that core content, I've always had for core content, I've always not only had a clean copy of that, meaning no logos and preferably no text on it, so that I can repurpose, reshare, and redistribute it. And that is why Pin Profits Mastery is a bomb course, because I teach all of that in Pin Profits Mastery, right? I teach that in Pin Profits Mastery, that you need to own your masters. There's a whole module on resharing, repurposing, and redistributing content. It talks all about and teaches, you know, in that module alone, like why you would want to take your TikTok, like the tick there. I talked about this TikTok to Pinterest pipeline and vice versa. And I've always teached or taught, not teached, tell I'm tired. I've always taught to have your pair and a spare, right? Your two platforms, and your two platforms, your primary and your secondary, cannot be owned by the same entity, right? Your pair and a spare cannot be owned by the same entity. Otherwise, you don't have a pair. You have one, right? So, for example, Meta owns TikTok, not TikTok. They definitely don't own TikTok. I'm going to talk about that. They own Facebook, they own Instagram, they own WhatsApp, right? So if any of those three are your pair, your primary and secondary, you don't actually have a primary and secondary, because guess what else the lights went out on? The lights also went out on CapCut. The lights also went out on Lemonade. Those are the only other two apps of theirs that are owned by ByteDance that I am aware of, but I know there's like 30 some apps under ByteDance, right? Those are the only three that I know. Yeah, it's already down. Mine was pronounced at 9:38 p.m. CST. When it did go down at 8:30, it started glitching probably around after 7 o'clock my time, right? It started glitching. And for a while, it was kind of like I saw somebody post a short video talking about when their patient, they were like a death doula, and when their patient, all of a sudden, the family's like, oh, it's like they're their old self again. And they're like, that means that it's imminent, it's coming, right? And that's what I saw with TikTok tonight, like, to be truthful. Okay. And so, that's what I've always taught: have your pair and a spare. We don't own these platforms. You need to be building your email list. You need to be collecting SMS text messages. You need to own your content. Just putting your content on a platform, like, I'm not trying to lecture at this moment because I mean, I think we're all still in kind of like a state of shock. I don't know what my neighbor is doing. I have no idea what's going on over there. But geez, don't come through this door. I got a thing. So anyway, you you cannot just put your content on a platform and be a serious content creator, a serious business owner. You need to have I learned from the best years ago, and they taught us to not only have one video vault, have multiple video vaults, right? I know someone who's had 2 or 3 YouTube channels shut down, and they had some bomb primo free content. I mean, like bomb content that they had on that channel for free. And once they shut them down, it was gone. They never get it back. Never got it back, right? They also had a Vimeo shutdown. I mean, and if the content on YouTube was bomb primo, the content that they had on Vimeo was like mind blowing. Well, and now it's kind of like it doesn't matter as much because it's several years old and would need a lot of updating, but it was relevant for quite a while, right? And so that is why you don't just put your content on someone else's platform. You do not own it. You don't own it, right? I know people who think that having a YouTube channel that is everything is unpublished protects them. But if YouTube were to go black, like TikTok just went black, you still lost your content. So you might want to start paying for things like Dropbox, like Google Drive, like a terabyte server from Apple, or whatever those other computers are these days, because I don't know anything about them. I only know Apple. Okay. But you need to own your content. You need to own your content. And yeah, it's a little annoying, but even when TikTok started saying, if you want to download this, you got to post it, then you can download it without the logo. I had a workaround for that. I had a workaround for that because they did have the best camera. They did have the best, I won't even say filter, because you didn't really, even if you look good, you take care of your skin. You really didn't even have to filter it. Their camera, there was just something about their camera, their editing tools. The only thing I wished is that you could flip, mirror your video within there, and they were integrating a lot of CapCut into the editing tool. I mean, but I'm just gonna go ahead and address this now too. A lot of y'all, number one, need to learn how to read. Like, and I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm not saying that to be rude, but a lot of y'all need to learn how to read, right? And comprehend, because comprehending and reading are 2 different things. So I think a lot of y'all do know how to read, or a lot of people know how to read, but I don't think a lot of people know how to comprehend. I think a lot of people hear headlines, they read headlines, and they don't actually read the articles, and it shows, because the amount of misinformation that I have heard, read, and seen in this past week has been completely mind-blowing. And I mean people who are very reputable, credible, and that I actually respect. And I think the second thing, aside from that piece of literacy, is actual financial literacy. Because if you had more advanced, I admit, financial literacy, you would know how the stock market works. You would know how publicly traded companies work. And you would know, for that reason alone, Facebook is not contending to buy TikTok. And you can read the post that's on my timeline. I know it doesn't get a lot of reach because it doesn't clickbait you. It doesn't strike up a lot of emotion. It's very emotionally balanced, very emotionally regulated, and very fact based. So I know it's not going to get a lot of reach, but you can go over to my Facebook and you can read the post there where I talk about Napster and Sean Parker. And the fact is, you're not okay. I know. The whole reason I'm live right now is because I don't know what to do, because that's what I do this time of night is I just scroll TikTok, and scrolling the other apps just isn't the same. It's just not the same. But back to what I was saying, like I really encourage you to go over to investopedia.com and start to learn how the stock market works. And start to learn what it actually means to be a publicly traded company, right? Now, in my 22 years of corporate experience, I first of all, the first merger and acquisition that I was exposed to, not saying I was involved in it, but exposed to, as it was as an intern at SC Johnson, when I was working in the professional division as an intern, getting paid because I don't work for free. And they acquired Windex from a company called Dracket. Okay, so I'm going to briefly talk about that. Mainly just to say this, that when a company acquires a brand like that, that brand now becomes a part of their history. And that company history and all of that from Dracket usually gets wiped away from history. And that's why a lot of times y'all go looking for stuff and you think it's a, what do they call it? A Mandela effect. Because when companies buy and acquire things, they strip out what they want and toss the rest. Okay, write that down. They strip out what they want and they toss the rest. It's so important to know that and to understand that. And just like in wars, the victor writes history. So the acquirer, I always have a problem with those RER words. They get to write history. So the original history of that brand and that company, usually now, if that company is still standing and then they just sold a piece off, that's a little bit of a different story. But for that brand, they are now part of that new company's history. Okay. The other thing I will tell you is part of the problem, along with not reading and understanding, is if you actually read and understand what has happened with this law, a couple things. Number one, the first ban actually happened in 2020 under the presidency of the person who is now wanting to save TikTok. He wrote an executive order. I don't know how y'all don't remember this, because I do very vividly and very clearly when he wrote the executive order to ban TikTok. And that's when they actually have US offices and US employees, and they did everything they needed to do to comply with what he said in order to be able to remain in the United States, right? And then that still wasn't good enough for people of a certain political party, and that got attached to this humanitarian aid bill, never went back and forth, that thing they do on the floor and all that. I'm trying to keep this as plain English as possible. None of that happened. It was in there and everybody knew it, and Biden knew it, and Biden said he was going to sign it, and he did. And so then TikTok began the court process, and they went through the lower, and when you have big money, you can speed things up. We all know that, right? So it finally made its way to the Supreme Court, and even Don the Con tried to, persuade the Supreme Court and they said no. And then I think they tried to hold off on giving their reading, or whatever you call it, their judgment. And the Biden administration was looking for loopholes to try to do what they can to buy time, never to stop the ban, to buy time. And they're saying, in the interest of the peaceful transition of power, they didn't want to, they're passing the buck, basically, right? And so the way that law was written even a 90-day extension, there are very strict things that have to be in place for a 90-day extension to be able to be granted by whomever is president of the United States. And it's a one-time 90-day extension. So when I tell y'all that TikTok as you knew it prior to 9:38 p.m. Central Standard Time this evening is never going to exist again, I would bet money on it. Because they are going to give them 90 days to find a buyer. And in order for that to be granted, they have to have proof that they have a buyer and are working on a deal. Okay, so now let's get to Meta and let's talk financial literacy. Meta is a publicly traded company. Okay, what that means is that, first of all, for them to acquire TikTok would be upwards of like $100 billion. They have not only shareholders, they have a board of directors that has to be involved in all of that. And not only that, because they are basically the two largest social media in the United States of America. That means that they have some extra steps to go through because of this thing called antitrust. So that game Monopoly, that's a real thing where they wrote laws to prevent that in the early 1900s. And when you go to, now I'm a little rusty on it because it's been several years, but when you get a BA, a bachelor's of arts of business admin, because I know y'all like to tussle about education, but when you get a BA in marketing, when you get a BA in business admin, you learn these things. You learn the Sherman Antitrust Act. And so you know that if TikTok wanted to buy, if Facebook Meta were actually buying TikTok, that's the first hurdle they're going to have to get through, is the Sherman Antitrust Act. And it would be very public and we would know. So this whole, y'all, I love y'all. I really, really do. But y'all imaginations and y'all emotions really work against you. We have to, baby, we are in for a ride for this next 4 years at least. When I took my shower this morning, that last minute, all the way on cold, head under, let that cold water hit the nape of the neck. Gotta regulate that nervous system, gotta shock it, gotta, get it engaged and that, because y'all, it's like when a girl thinks her man is cheating on her and her mind starts just creating shit. That's what y'all doing with this whole Meta thing. Like the whole, they're not telling you to link your TikTok account to Facebook. And that's where reading and comprehension are important. Importante, muy importante. Porque it actually is just telling you can add your TikTok link to your profile if you actually read it. And I'm not being mean. I'm not being a pendejo. Okay. I got it too. I got a screenshot it and I read it, and that's what it says. It's not just reading, it's comprehension. It literally says you can add your link. My TikTok link has been added for over a year, probably two, to my profile. I can't remember if it's on any of my business pages or not, but that's all that is. Everybody is trolling y'all right now. Everybody. TikTok is trolling you. Meta is trolling you. Congress is trolling you. Trump is trolling you. Biden is trolling you. Everybody is trolling you. Okay? Everybody is trolling you. This is a time of confusion. And you know what that means. It is not of God. This is a time of confusion. And this is why it is important to read, to learn to comprehend. Like when you're reading on your phone, if you double tap on the word, it will open up a dictionary and tell you what the word means. And I'm not saying this to be mean. I promise you, I am saying this out of concern, because we are in trouble if we can't handle something as nuanced and unimportant. I won't say it's unimportant, but in the bigger scheme of things that are happening and being proposed, TikTok is important but it's just not I don't know that it's urgent. Okay. What I'm saying is there are more humanitarian issues. There are more civil rights issues that are at play. And if we can't figure out and understand and comprehend what's happening with TikTok and all the misinformation from people who are educated, from people who are, centers of influence, Molly, you in trouble, girl. From Ghost, Molly, you in trouble. Right? So that's not what that says. It is not telling you to link your TikTok. I think, again, comprehension from what I'm gathering, and I could be wrong. Somebody correct me. When y'all see that and hear about that, and I think a lot of y'all want, okay, because I'm going to tell you, one of the things I've had to learn to do with social media is not react to what other people say, not react to other people reacting, and to actually dig a little and see for myself what is going on. Okay. Because it only takes one or two times for me to share something that ain't true. And then I feel stupid, right? So that hasn't happened to me in many, many years because I've learned to see for myself and not just react to what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing. Okay. And so I think from what I can tell, y'all are assuming when you see that it is saying that you are connecting your TikTok to Facebook, and that is not what is happening. The only apps that Facebook connects like that are other meta apps like Instagram. And do you know how many years it took before they would actually connect Instagram in that way and integrate Instagram? Several. I think they owned Instagram for about probably 8 to 10 years before that happened. Right. And I'm not talking down to anybody. I'm not talking down on anyone. But I got to be real. That's part of my brand. Y'all know who I am. I'm real. Okay. So it's reading and comprehension. Please, please, please bookmark Investopedia.com and go there. You can even run simulations. It used to be free. I don't know if it still is, but you can even run simulations, like how there's fantasy football. You can have like a fantasy stock portfolio and play with stock without real money to figure it out, right? Go to marketwatch.com, set up Google alerts for some of your favorite companies, whatever brands you buy a lot of. If you're a Starbucks girl, set up a Google alert to follow the stock for Starbucks. Listen in. It's free. You can dial into investor calls when they do their quarterly calls. Okay. You will learn a lot. Print out and read, download annual reports. You will be amazed at what you learn. Okay. But going forward, this just what Suzette or Claudette said. I don't care who it is. You better be fact checking that. You need to be looking it up. And that includes Tamara Hamilton. Because I ain't always right either. I mean, it's very, 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 very rare. But and I'm gonna tell y'all, some of these people know that they're lying when they say the stuff. They're saying it for clickbait. They're saying it for views. And some of them are nefarious, and some of them are manipulators, and some of them are narcs. I'm just keep it real, all the way real with you. And you're so caught up in your emotion that you're missing the red flags. And it ain't on me. That I don't have time for that right now. And I don't write subliminal posts. I just say what I gotta say. So, we're in a season where I don't have space to hold for unnecessary stuff. So you got to hold that space for yourself to be able to discern the red flags. The biggest one that I can give you is saying one thing and doing and behaving another. I'm going to leave it at that. Leave it at that. Okay? Leave it at that. Because in the same breath, some of them say one thing, but then they are, it's wild. It's absolutely wild. right? The other thing I want you to understand, and again, I don't think there is a company that I have worked at in over 20 years of corporate experience that I was not either employed there when they had a merger or an acquisition or several of them, or I started working there shortly after a merger or acquisition. And I've worked for some of the biggest names out there, right? It's no secret. I worked at JP Morgan Chase, and in the state of Wisconsin, they were once Bank One. Okay. And they were still dealing with that when I started working there many years ago. Okay. And I tell you, prior to that, my first job out of college after interning, that company actually finally got bought by someone else a couple years ago. But there's this period called due diligence. There's a period called due diligence. And in that you've heard that phrase before, due diligence, right? And so that's where they get to review the books to make sure that they are buying something that is worth what they're being told it is. So that's part of it, is the valuation. And I will tell you, having worked for a company that was buying airlines and buying up its competitors like at a very rapid clip, most people outside of the C-suite of that company have no idea, and they legally cannot know that that acquisition is even on the table, that that merger is even on the table, especially when it's during due diligence. They might be part of it in terms of compiling reports and providing information, but they have no reason why and who is looking at it, because it ain't their business. It ain't their role. It's above their pay grade. So this idea that so what? Instagram has been talking about going away from Square for several years. Y'all memories are slow because y'all are too reactive and react to everything instead of keeping calm and doing, like I said, from the 28 Strategies of War, the second book by Robert Greene, the guy who wrote the 48 Laws of Power. He talks about coming up off the battlefield and doing he didn't say the Matrix. This is me paraphrasing. Doing the Matrix and scanning, doing a scan and seeing what's really going on. Because a lot of people, and y'all want to believe so bad because you're so desperate for whatever it is that the app is giving you, that you're listening to people's opinions, which really aren't even fact-based opinions. They're telling you based on their own emotion and their own, not even gut or visceral reaction. It's just they truly, a lot of people truly did not believe that the government would go this far. And true, the government didn't pull the plug. TikTok called their bluff. That's the other thing I want y'all to learn from this. You have to know your enemy. And that is from, I'm pretty sure that's from the 48 Laws of Power. I don't even feel like messing with it to look it up, but I'm pretty sure that's in the 48 Laws of Power. You need to know your enemy. And I got to be very careful how I phrase this, because you know my heart, I'm not coming from a racist or prejudiced standpoint, but there are groups and ethnic groups in this world that are very stubborn, and you do not try to bully them. You do not try to force your way with them. And the Chinese are one of those groups. You don't do that. So the other reason that Meta is likely not acquiring, notice I said likely, because it's all speculation at this point. I don't know for a fact because I ain't in the room. I can just tell you based on my professional experience, not only my formal education, which is up to and including master degrees, but also having been a FINRA licensed representative, meaning I was able to sell mutual funds and universal life and all of that, and had to do continuing education, right? It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't add up. It I hate to use this word, but it's childish, right? So, yeah, no. I highly doubt that that's happening, and if it is, the things that y'all think y'all are seeing are not signs. They are mirages. You are being trolled, okay? You are being distracted from one thing I'm not even gonna say out loud because I have nothing to substantiate it, but there is some really weird stuff happening, especially when it comes to that inauguration. There's some very weird stuff happening, right? Some of these bills that are being proposed, you really need to be paying attention and reading up and knowing and keeping up with what the people in your state are doing and what they're doing in Washington on the Hill, because they're coming for us. And all this trolling back and forth and like I was saying, the Chinese government has a very strict law about selling their proprietary technology to foreign countries, right? Facebook is banned and has never been allowed in China. Again, do y'all read this stuff? Do you know this? Mark has done things to try to appease that government, and they do not stand him. And keep in mind, I believe his wife is Chinese. Her name is Priscilla Chan. So if they have a law that makes it very difficult for them to sell, and they can't sell the algorithm, they cannot sell it, right? They cannot sell it. If you're asking me for the link to my StreamYard, you are out of your mind. Not happening. They cannot sell that, right? The process that it would take to sell TikTok to Meta, I'll put it to you this way, aside from Elon's antics, and including Elon's antics, Elania Musk, as what I like to refer to him, it took 6 months for the sale of Twitter to be complete. It took even longer for T-Mobile and Sprint to merge because of antitrust. So there's no amount of time there's no way Meta could purchase TikTok and beat the 90-day deadline. It just wouldn't happen, y'all. It just would not happen. For one, they don't like that man. They don't like him. So that's not happening. If you want to know the real truth of what's happening, it's always about follow the money, right? It's about follow the money. There are a handful of reasons. There is not just one reason why they want to take this app. And y'all are right about a lot of those reasons. So we don't need to go over that. But think about who wants to save it. The same person who held up the stimulus checks that made people vote for him a second time, a whole $1,200. Right? If you read those notices that were popping up on TikTok tonight and the way they've been framing things, they definitely are suckling up to the orangutan in his administration. Okay? Because he's a narcissist. So that's what they got to do. They're playing the game. But what is being negotiated is not a sale of TikTok to Meta. I would put money on that. And if I lost, I lost. But there is some sort of deal being made. But they still gotta work within the law. They still gotta work within what has already been done. But I would bet that homeboy is looking for a cut. because and this is just the first of many deals like this that's going to go happen under our clock when you look at who is being put in the cabinet. I'm not even going to talk about the crypto bailout that's on the table. Like, y'all got to read. You got to read. You got to read. You got to read. And you got to comprehend. Right? With TikTok gone, how do we find out the information we've been able to find out the last 4, 5, 7 years? Where else can we go to find that out? And as quickly and get educated. Because if you watched my live yesterday, I talked about that. Your social media experience going forward is going to be very different. And I found people saying the same things on TikTok, right? Like on X, they call it shadow ghosting, not shadow banning. So if you speak out against the administration, you'll still get some reach, but it's going to be like only 10% of what it was before. But if you just post about cooking videos, you just post about, travel, about fashion, you're fine. But if you're going to talk politics, you better be talking. And that is why I know some of y'all have been wondering why all of a sudden have certain women or female, because I hate that word, women creators gone religious. That's why. Because that's what we're moving to. We're moving to, you have to be with the agenda or there are going to be consequences. That's the reality of it. We're moving to, with TikTok out of the way, that's what you've been seeing Meta do. They're trolling you. They're posturing. They're telling you, come over here, come over here, come over here. Now, there are people who are saying that the reels suddenly are getting a lot of reach. Trust me, that's only temporary. That's only temporary. Once this is done and over and behind them, it is pay to play. Organic traffic is going to become more and more difficult. Somebody said this tonight. They said, because I said it yesterday about Instagram. I've told y'all the Instagram algorithm is rogue. They cannot contain it. They really can't control it. And Facebook is so friend of a friend, friend of a friend, friend of a friend. That's why you don't ever really get beyond your friends. And if they have fatigue, if you wanted to get in front of new people, you had to go to TikTok, because reels on Facebook don't equate what TikTok, right? Reels, like what I see in my feed for reels is a lot of foreign stuff that's disgusting that I don't even like to see. It makes my skin crawl. It's a lot of AI generated stuff, and it's just weird. Everything they didn't want to become, they've become, if you ask me. Like how some of those blogs, and they have all that really gross stuff on them at the bottom, the paid ads and that. Facebook has a lot of that type of content on it, to be truthful. Not so much Instagram, but Facebook does for sure, especially when it comes to reels. Especially. And I'll be honest with you, right now, I have my phone recording on Instagram and I look horrible. I don't like it. But I would look so good if I were on TikTok. I can't say horrible because I don't know that I ever look horrible, but the quality is just not the same. It's just not the same. For one, I look very orange and fake tan like I'm a Barbie, and I'm definitely not pale skinned. So, yeah. It's time to get your digital house in order. It's been time. I've been telling you for a long time. You got to get your digital house in order. You actually have to have a strategy going forward. And there are a lot of people who like to call themselves strategists, and they're just ops girlies. They're just, whatever profession they were before they thought they could call themselves a marketing strategist. And I don't mean to minimize that, but I mean they're not actually marketing strategists, they're not business strategists. Because I think I need to stop pigeonholing myself to just marketing. I know business. I am a businesswoman. I have over 20 years of corporate experience. And I keep devaluing myself because and it's moments like this when I realize exactly the wealth of knowledge that I do have. Because you have highly paid millionaire coaches who are unfortunately spreading misinformation. I even because I checked myself. So I went to Chat GPT and asked it the likelihood, and it said it was nearly improbable that Facebook would be buying Meta for pretty much the exact same reasons that I said. So, and it's not, I don't do it because I feel like I have to be right for my ego. I feel I have a responsibility to present accurate, fact based information, not about my ego, not about emotion, not about clickbait, not about views and likes. But that's just me. And apparently, that's very rare. And unfortunately, that's very rare. But that's all I can do. I can only be me. I can't come in here and be like other people and be somebody else. So, guess I'll be listening to audiobooks tonight and reading books because what else am I going to do? I will tell you this on the screen is the link to my 6-month intensive. You can still join it because a lot more of y'all need it than you know. And it has nothing to do with TikTok being banned because you need an actual strategist. You need someone who actually can help you navigate the turbulent times that are ahead of us. It's not that I know everything. I never know everything, but I do know how to make it in tough times. I've experienced a lot in my corporate career, in my entrepreneurial quest. And I've just always been a natural born leader. Oldest child, oldest grandchild, and oldest firstborn niece. And one thing I do is shine in tough times. You can go to that link, TamaraHamilton.com, the Luminary Path, and there's a video that will explain it all to you. But y'all need a real coach. This is not the time to be trying to do this on your own and figure it out from free YouTube videos. It's just not. It's just not. Mm-mm. It's not. It would suck to be you. I would hate to be you thinking that was the case. So, reading is fundamental. Comprehension. It's just like when I hired, developed, and led high performing sales teams, I always said, everybody wants to talk about knowing the compensation plan. No, it's not just about knowing the compensation plan, it's about understanding the compensation plan. Because when you understand the compensation plan, you can develop the right strategy to win. Right? When you understand the compensation plan, knowing the compensation plan and understanding it are two completely different things. Two completely different things. You got to know where the money is. You got to know what plays to run to get to the nut. And that's again, P&L. I was a P&L queen. I knew the P&L better than my boss and some of her counterparts. Wasn't the most politically savvy because I used to love to make her look dumb. I think that's law number 2 of the 48 laws of power: never outshine the master. I knew it, but didn't care. And so here we are. Here we are. I'll definitely be up reading because I'm drinking mushroom coffee after 10 o'clock on Saturday. And I can't even have music in the background like you can on TikTok. You can't even have music in the background. It's a different world, y'all. It's a different world. But you know what? You'll be okay. You'll adapt, because I hate the word pivot. It was so overused in 2020. You will adapt, you will modify, you will adjust, you will control what you can control. You will hire a coach, a strategist, a mentor. If not me, hire somebody. Y'all so quick to hire virtual assistants when you actually need a business brain. And I don't say that to say that you're unintelligent. What I find is a lot of business owners are really good at their craft, what it is that they do, and it brings them the most joy. But actually thinking like a business owner and making the creating the strategic plan and the business plan like a business owner usually does not come first nature to most. And that's why they like to outsource a lot of the things that they don't enjoy doing. But when you look at the CEO of most major companies, they are sales and marketing people, even if they don't have that background. That is what they are doing, right? Like, to not understand why CEOs of social media companies are at the inauguration, because they are media companies. They are the new media. It is a political play. And I hate workplace politics, but I get that. So I think I'm going to go now. Now I got to go find something. I got to go drink some almond milk so I can get that melatonin going. I don't want to be up all night. It's 11 o'clock. I should have done a load of laundry today. I didn't. I won't do laundry on Sunday for spiritual reasons. But I can always say I was there. I remember exactly the moment. I've got it documented. 9:38 p.m. Central Standard Time, Saturday, January 28th, 10 days before my 51st birthday. The night the lights went out on TikTok. That's a play on the title of a song by Gladys Knight and the Pips, The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia. The night the lights went out on TikTok. My grandma used to listen to that song when I was a little girl, like second grade. That song was popular. She had it on 8-track. And that's the other thing. If you're a Gen Z, stop calling people old, because y'all don't know everything. There are even millennials who are lost in the sauce on this. And I'm sitting back like, you are a multi-million-dollar coach. But I have to remember, people don't know what they don't know. And not everyone is a student. I'm not overly a student of history. I'm not like a history nerd. But if I lived through it and experienced it, chances are I'm going to remember it, or remember enough to go look it up. And we're moving to a time where things that you know happened are going to be erased. You're not going to be able to find them on the internet. They're going to be scrubbed from the internet. They're going to be scrubbed from social media. Keep that in mind. We're moving to a time where facts are going to be replaced by alternative facts. That is why Zuckerberg is moving to more of like X. The entire goal is to create confusion, and have your nervous system so dysregulated you don't know whether you're coming or going. And then when you add to that this tussling and talk about education being overrated, and you've got people that are part of a permanent working class and who can be easily manipulated and controlled and thusly enslaved. And I'm not being political, I'm just real talking you. Yep, says Natasha. So you gotta be on your up and up. Gotta be on your up and up. I've seen a lot of boomer clean out, people going through and putting their parents on blast for their hoarding. Them old encyclopedias, them old newspapers and stuff. I wouldn't throw that stuff out right now. I just wouldn't. When you go to yard sales, to thrift shops, and that stuff is in there, buy it. Because we're moving to a time where confusion is going to be used against us. And when you go to search for it online, it is not going to be there. It's going to have been scrubbed and erased like it never happened. All right. Oh, so the numbers are dwindling. So is my excitement. So I'm going to go. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next live. Bye.